When you're on a diet and you're doing everything correctly, there are going to be times where you're actually going to be hungry, and that's okay. That means it's actually working. But in the morning, you can kind of walk it off. You're like, I'm hungry, but I get to eat later. But in the middle of the day, it's like, I probably should have ate more for breakfast. I'm really kind of hungry now. And that's kind of a tricky point for a lot of people where they end up making not so great decisions and eating a little bit more. But if you can make it through that point, and you make it to dinner and you have your good normal dinner, the trickiest part to get through on a diet is exactly what I got a comment on a couple days ago saying how to deal with hunger at night. And I went ahead and gave this really detailed response. I figured I'd pop on the video and talk about it here. And also got some other people viewing the channel that gave some really cool insights too that are very, very helpful. So how do you deal with hunger at night? Because if you go to bed hungry, it's just not a good time, typically speaking. So a couple things I was talking about in this comment here was my classic response, which is, check your protein and check your fiber intake across the whole day. If you notice that you're really low on protein and you're low on fiber, meaning about 10 to 15 grams per 1,000 calories you eat. So if you're at 1,500 calories a day, for example, that's 15 to 17 and a half grams of fiber, if my math is correct. You can double check me on that. But somewhere around that range, and at least bare minimum 120 grams of protein, in my opinion. If you're not at those baselines, it does make sense that you're hungry throughout the day in different ways and in different times, especially at night. So that's number one. The second thing I was talking about was check your overall hydration, not just water. Water is great, but that's just part of the equation. The other one is all the electrolytes like magnesium, potassium, calcium, all the other ones out there. I can't ever remember on these. Sodium, that's the one I forgot in another video. I can't believe it. Anyway, but you check all the electrolytes as well. If you notice you haven't really had a lot of electrolyte-rich foods like chicken, steak, and different types of vegetables and everything like that, then it could be good to have some kind of supplement in some kind of sense, according to a blood test through a doctor. That's the best way to find out. Consult your doctor. I say this in a lot of videos now. But that's another thing to check out, because a lot of times what happens with people is they feel like they are hungry when actually they are thirsty. And I'm not saying you can't be both, because most people on a diet are gonna feel hungry and thirsty. But what you do is you take a drink, right? And then you notice how you start to feel a little bit less hungry. And a lot of times people can go for hours on that. And this is only really a practical application if you're managing your overall diet. If you're just kind of winging it, it's not ideal, because you need to make sure you are eating enough, at least to support like the baseline level of nutrition that you need as well. So a lot of little like nuances here, but it is really important to keep hydration in check as well. Next thing I was talking about was saving room for a snack before bed. And this is a really big key, because if you front load your calories for the day and have like a smaller lunch, smaller dinner, there's no way you're not going to be hungry at night. And then if you go ahead and have like a smaller breakfast, a mid-sized lunch, a larger dinner, you're less likely to be hungry at night. But the thing is, I always recommend saving some kind of calories at night. And a lot of people are worried about gaining fat when they eat carbs at night or eat calories at night, because they're not really doing much at that point. But it's really about the total day. So if your whole body is estimated to be burning 2,500 calories and you're eating 2,300, even though it's a small deficit, you're still going to be burning fat because you're not eating too much, regardless of the time of the day that you're actually eating it. So won't really stress about all the minor details and focus on the bigger picture. So saving a little bit of the room at the end of the day for some like Greek yogurt, or one of the commenters here said watermelon. Absolutely excellent choice, because you can eat a ton of it and it's super low calorie. Like I think a pound of it is about 150 calories. Again, double check that one as well. It's just off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's right around there. And then the next thing I was talking about here is, let's see here, where'd it go? I lost my answers here. Just decided to stop showing up. Okay, another thing you can also do is check your overall calories. I kind of briefly mentioned this before, but it's a really important thing to do, because sometimes when people aren't tracking calories and they're just on a diet, they cut calories so aggressively. And I've seen this happen where someone I knew had a maintenance calories of about 2,600 calories a day, and they were eating 1,500. And not to say you can't do that. I would never recommend it, and you can do it. And it is possible to do some really interesting finaglings with the specific food choices so you feel full and you can make it happen. But that is an incredibly aggressive deficit and totally not necessary. So what we do instead is kind of focus on that 300 to 500 calorie deficit, stay there for a while, see what happens with that, because in a lot of cases you can lose weight on that same exact number of calories for a very, very long time. I'm talking several months in a row, and just continue to make progress. There's no need to rush it, because a lot of times people get this whole thing messed up where they're like, oh, I need to lose weight fast. Well, did you gain the weight fast? Most people took years to gain the weight that they did. There's no sense of rushing it to try to lose it all in 3 months. Give yourself time. Give that smaller deficit. Build those sustainable habits, and that's going to make it a lot easier. And if you're on the right calories, much less likely to be hungry at night. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the nuclear option, where if you've done all this here and everything else fails, then what you can do is simply eat anyway. And the reason I say this, and it's not something you want to build a habit of, is because it is better to eat something and sleep better than it is to stick to the diet because you got to be a hardcore dieter and make sure you're on point 100% of the time, and then you end up waking up and then you have a nighttime snack anyway because you're absolutely starving and you can't make it through the night with a good quality night of sleep. That is worse for you because it sets your next day up for poor decision making due to lack of sleep and all these other things that just could have been avoided if you decided to eat anyway. And what you do is you don't just go do the same thing the next day, you plan ahead for that. And then you apply the whole save some room at the end of the night for something very filling. Like, again, watermelon's a great choice, Greek yogurt's a great choice, stuff like that that is just full. It keeps you full. Or, you can go a little crazy and have some like beef jerky or chicken tenderloins or like sweet potato, like have like a fourth meal, but make it like super dense. And that can do a good thing too. But that's not really like a late night snack job, like snack food. But you can do it. You can absolutely do it. Popcorn, if you do it right, you do it like a lower calorie popcorn, that can be super filling and you can eat a whole ton of it. So that's an option as well. But sometimes you just got to eat anyway so you can get the good quality sleep and then plan ahead for the next day. So the other comment that I wanted to share as well, which was a pretty valuable thing, is sleep by 10:30, because I know a lot of people are staying up way later than they should, myself included. Speaking of sleeping by 10:30, I'm filming this at 11 p.m. So I'm not going to really make that cutoff, but I'm also not hungry at night, and I'm actually still going to have my Greek yogurt. So I have this all set. So I'm not worried about it for me. But going to sleep at a reasonable hour, it can make a big difference, because if you have your dinner at 5:30, 6, somewhere in that range, and then you maybe have a little bit of thing, like a little tiny snack before bed, you should be good to go if you're sleeping by 10, 10:30, even 11. But when you're crazy like me and you go to sleep at like midnight, 1 a.m., it's a little different. Yeah, I got to have something for my case. So yeah, if you take all these tips, you should not really be hungry at night anymore. And it definitely does make a big difference because you can sleep better and you feel better. And everything is just overall better when you get a good night of sleep and you're not hungry. But it is a diet. So there are points where you're going to be hungry. You just got to figure out the best way for you to manage it. So that's all for this one. Go ahead and check out one of the other videos on my channel. I always pop up 2, give you some options, see which one you like more. Hopefully they're wildly different so you can see the different types of like training content, diet content, all this kind of stuff. And that's all for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.